Imagine a bustling metropolis like Lagos, Nigeria, where life pulsates with frenetic energy. Amidst the chaos, a sense of community and trust is essential, like a beacon of hope in a stormy night. But what if I told you that a sinister force had infiltrated this community, preying on the most vulnerable members of society, like a predator stalking its prey? Well, welcome to our channel, where we will delve into the darkest recesses of human nature and the supernatural. Today, we will be sharing a chilling tale that will leave you questioning the people around you. So get ready for a story that will freeze your blood and leave you on the edge of your seat. This story is the story of Ojo's family, who had just welcomed a new addition to their family, a beautiful baby boy named Toby, with skin as smooth as alabaster and eyes that sparkled like diamonds. As they navigated the challenges of parenthood being working-class Lagosians, they decided to hire a babysitter to help with child care, unaware of the horror that awaited them. Little did they know, a dark force had been awakened in the underworld, like a malevolent entity staring from a deep slumber. A powerful witch named Priscilla had been summoned by her master, the Dark Lord Azazel, to initiate babies into a dark cult. Priscilla's eyes gleamed with an otherworldly intensity, and her smile could curdle milk at 100 pieces. Priscilla had been a loyal servant of Azazel for centuries, carrying out his evil deeds on earth with ruthless efficiency. But what drove her to this life of darkness? This answer lay in her past, shrouded in mystery and terror. Priscilla's story began over 100 years ago in a small village where her mother lived. Priscilla's mother was a barren woman, unable to conceive despite her desperate attempts. The villagers mocked her, calling her names and making her feel like a failure. So she was desperate for a child, and as they say, desperate people do desperate things. Priscilla's mother embarked on a perilous journey, seeking out the darkest and most ancient powers to help her in her ordeal. Well, she eventually found herself standing before Lord Azazel, a powerful and malevolent deity who demanded a terrible price in exchange for granting her wish for a child. "I want a child," Priscilla's mother begged, her voice shaking with desperation. "I will do anything, just give me a child." Lord Azazel's eyes gleamed with malevolence as he replied, "I will give you a child, but in return, you must promise me that you will serve me faithfully. You will recruit more babies for me, and she will do my bidding without question." Priscilla's mother agreed to the deal, unaware of the horror she was unleashing upon the world. Few months later, she became pregnant and gave birth to a beautiful baby girl and named her Priscilla. As Priscilla grew up, her mother, a powerful witch in her own right, began to initiate her into the dark cult. Priscilla's mother taught her the dark arts, showing her how to harness her powers and use them for evil. Well, Priscilla proved to be a quick learner, and soon she was carrying out her mother's instructions with ruthless efficiency. She became a loyal servant of Azazel, recruiting babies for him and doing his bidding without question. Priscilla's eyes blazed over as she remembered the ritual, the pain and the fear. But she had long since embraced the darkness she lived in, and now she reveled in its power. So, she strategically positioned herself to be employed by the Ojo couple, monitoring them for months like a hawk patiently watching for its prey. She created a fake identity for herself, complete with a convincing backstory and fake references. She even went as far as to create a fake social media profile to make herself appear more trustworthy. "I am so grateful for this opportunity," Priscilla cooed, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. "I promise to take good care of your precious baby." You see, the Ojo family grew to trust Priscilla implicitly, unaware of the evil that lurked beneath her benign exterior. They saw her as a kind and caring babysitter who always put their child's needs first. "We are so lucky to have found you, Priscilla," Mrs. Ojo gushed. "You are like a member of our family." Little did they know, Priscilla was a wolf in sheep's clothing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In fact, they trusted her so much that they decided to travel for Christmas, leaving their son Toby in her care. They felt confident that Priscilla would take good care of him and that they could enjoy a well-deserved break. You see, fate had other plans. The Ojos arrived at the airport only to discover that their flight had been cancelled due to bad weather. They were disappointed and frustrated. They decided to return home, hoping to rebook their flight for the next day. But as they arrived home that night, they were met with a sight that would haunt them forever. Priscilla, the once sweet babysitter they had employed, was standing in the nursery, surrounded by candles and strange symbols. The air was thick with the stench of brimstone and decay. She was no longer the kind and caring babysitter they thought she knew. She was a monstrous creature, summoned from the depths of the underworld to carry out a dark and sinister ritual. Her eyes glowed with an eerie red light, and her skin seemed to ripple and writhe like a living thing. The Ojos watched in horror as Priscilla attempted to initiate their son Toby into the dark court. They knew they had to act fast or risk losing their child forever. "What are you doing?" Mr. Ojo thundered, his voice shaking with rage. "You are not going to hurt our child." As the Ojos confronted Priscilla, they knew they had to act fast to save their son. But how could they overpower a powerful witch like Priscilla? Suddenly, Mrs. Ojo remembered the anointing oil their pastor had blessed in church. She had kept it in her dresser drawer, hoping to use it one day for protection. Now that day had come. So Mrs. Ojo rushed to her dresser and grabbed the anointing oil. She poured some of it into her hands and began to pray fervently. "Oh God, please protect us from this evil creature," she cried out. As she prayed, she felt a surge of power, a holy power, flow through her. She turned to face Priscilla, who was now laughing manically as she continued the dark ritual. With the anointing oil still flowing from her hands, Mrs. Ojo flung it at Priscilla, hitting her straight in the face. Priscilla let out a blood-curdling scream as the holy oil burned her skin. The Ojos took advantage of the distraction to grab their son and make a run for it. But Priscilla was not one to give up easily. She summoned all her dark powers and sent a wave of evil crashing towards the Ojos. But Mr. Ojo was ready for her. He grabbed a nearby Bible and held it up like a shield. The energy, evil as it is, hit the Bible, but it bounced right back at Priscilla, sending her flying across the room. The Ojos took advantage of the reprieve to make their escape. They grabbed their son and ran out of the house, not stopping until they were safely locked inside their car. As they caught their breath, they knew they had to get out of that house for good. The memories of that horrible night would haunt them forever. They decided to move out of the house immediately, leaving behind all the memories, both good and the bad. It was a painful decision, but they knew it was necessary. So as they drove away from the house, they felt a sense of relief wash over them. They knew they had overcome a great evil and they were grateful to be alive. But as they looked back at the house while driving away, they could have sworn they saw Priscilla's face in the window, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly intensity. They shuddered at the thought, knowing that they would never be able to forget the horror they had faced that night. They knew they had to start afresh, to leave the memories of that horrible night behind. They found a new house on the other side of the town, a cozy little place with a big backyard and a white picket fence. It was the perfect place to start anew. As they settled into their new home, the Ojos began to rebuild their lives. They spent days playing with their son, watching him grow and thrive in a safe and loving environment. They spent their nights praying and reading the Bible, seeking comfort and guidance in the face of the evil they had faced. But even as they moved on, they knew they would never forget the lessons they had learned. They knew that evil was real and that it was always lurking, waiting to strike. They knew that they had to be vigilant, to always be on the lookout for the forces of darkness. And so they lived, always mindful of the evil that had once threatened to destroy them. But they also lived with hope, knowing that they had overcome that evil and emerged stronger and more faithful on the other side. Well, as for Priscilla, she was never seen or heard from again. Some say she was banished back to the underworld, where she would face eternal torment for her failure. Others say she still roams the earth, seeking out her next victim. But one thing is certain, the Ojos would never forget the horror they had faced at her hands, and they will always be grateful for the miracle that has saved them. You see, their story serves as a reminder that evil is real, but even a reminder that God is always more powerful. It reminds us to always be vigilant, to always be on the lookout for forces of darkness. It also reminds us that no matter what challenges we may face, we are never alone, and that God is always with us, guiding and protecting us every step of the way, if we trust in Him and in Him alone. Thank you for being here and for listening to this story. I hope we will learn one or two things and stay safe out there. Thank you and see you in the next story. Bye for now.